Draymond Green slander is a fun pastime on NBA Twitter. It's what you would call a low-hanging fruit. Here you have a guy that's been playing big man positions at all of 6'6". He doesn't look that athletic. He's a very easy target to roast. He doesn't play flashy. He shoots like he has a backpack on sometimes, and that's especially an easy target over the last few years where he doesn't shoot as well as he did in the 2016 season. And he has always been the part of that team that we said could not stand alone, could not stand by himself. You got Steph, you got Klay, then KD joined, but we've always said if you took those elements away, then he becomes Mr. Triple Single. He's not carrying any team, he's not putting any team on his back, he's probably not going to be the best player on a playoff team. Oh yeah, and then there's the matter that he talks a lot, on and off the court. He says what's on his mind. Sometimes it's hilarious, like the Paul Pierce slander. Then sometimes it's like what you were getting in the last week and a half, where he's on shows, he's on interviews, and he's doing what people refer to as talking out the side of his neck. When he starts saying things like, oh, I might have had more impact in the game than Charles Barkley, when his name even gets mentioned in the same breath as Jordan, all logic goes out the window because A, people have been waiting to roast the guy. They've had these bullets in the chamber. And B, Twitter's only like, what, 280 characters, something like that? So you combine that with the fact that people only read headlines, they only read things that were mostly taken out of context, and you're just not going to get many well-formulated thoughts. And you know what? While I have historically agreed with some of the positions taken against Draymond Green, as in I can remember a specific conversation I had to have with somebody in person in 2016 where they were trying to explain to me why Draymond was better than Blake Griffin. Individually as a player, especially back then, I did not agree with that. I still hold those beliefs today, but the problem with the slander that goes too far is that people are trying to have it both ways, and I finally decided this had to be pointed out when I ran across a post from Bleacher Report about a week ago. And it was a quote from Draymond talking about how him, Klay, and Steph all helped change the game together. And I promise you, out of all the fuckery I've ever experienced on NBA Twitter, I've never seen one thread where 99.9% of the people on it had no clue what they were talking about. I've seen splits before. I've seen like 50-50, maybe 75%, 25%. I've seen threads where it's been contested and normally there's a few people there, or more than a few people there talking sense. But this thread would have you believing that the Warriors were not the most popular team to watch over like the last, 4 or 5 years? It's as if no one ever actually watched a Warriors game. Now, I get it. It is NBA Twitter. I understand most people actually do consume basketball casually. But even after I retweeted this thread, there were people hopping on it that wholeheartedly believed that Draymond Green really did not have that much of an impact. So allow us to start from the top. Just off bat, you can't have it both ways. This thing where the Warriors ruined basketball over the last few years, oh, they had 4 All-Stars, how was LeBron supposed to beat that? They were unfair, it wasn't competitive. You can't have it on that side and then also come back after you said that they've got 4 All-Stars and then say Draymond Green didn't have an impact, or he wasn't that good, he was just riding coattails. How do you argue both of those sides? I agree that once Kevin Durant joined the team, then yes, at that point you could probably take away at least one of any of those 4 and still have the team go on to be very competitive, if not win it all. Well, except for KD obviously. But in Draymond, we're talking about a player that won Defensive Player of the Year back in 2017, was playing incredible defense in 2016, and was actually a decent shooter at the time, and he had a very clear impact in helping change the way basketball was played that it feels like everybody on this thread missed. Or at least he had a very clear impact in influencing it. So let's take it back to before KD. You do realize that the death lineup does not exist without Draymond Green, correct? The death lineup before KD consists of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, Harrison Barnes, and Draymond Green. The uniqueness of that death lineup did not just come on the offensive end, although again, that's how most people consume basketball. Very few people are watching defensive highlights, very few people are actually paying attention to defense while watching the game. But the special thing about the Warriors through this whole time that they were changing basketball, it wasn't that they were just revolutionizing what was happening on offense, it was defensively as well. There aren't many teams in history that had basically clones of each other on defense so that they were able to switch everything. And what I mean by that is, outside of Steph Curry, damn near everyone in that lineup is a height of like 6'6" to 6'8". So when you were talking about like wing defense or defending the perimeter, if you wanted to get a switch, it was really to no avail because you were just going to get another guy within that height range that was equally as versatile on defense. And Draymond Green was a huge cog to that because especially in this lineup, he was playing center. But here's the thing, Draymond Green at 6'6" was versatile enough to hold his ground against somebody bigger than him at the center position, but then still be able to switch onto a guard, a forward, a ball handling player, right? And still be able to challenge them as if he was another guy like Klay Thompson or Harrison Barnes or whoever else would have switched. He was able to plug right into that. That doesn't happen with Andrew Bogut. That doesn't didn't happen with Festus Ezeli. Although Andrew Bogut was definitely a key cog to that 2015-2016 team, very important rim protector, but it's called the death lineup for a reason. So then Green being that size and being able to switch out onto the perimeter is also able to help the Warriors in transition. Again, a 6-foot center being able to actually run the floor, being able to outrun his defending center. This was literally the adjustment that gave them the upper hand in a 2015 series that they were struggling in. And so this is the part, again, this is why I mostly don't argue on NBA Twitter and why I don't have conversations, because it's a nuance, right? Little details that people just don't mention. And one of the arguments that I saw was, hey, the Warriors did not invent small ball. Small ball was happening before them. And again, small ball definitely has two advantages, for the Warriors at least. When I was just talking about defense, on offense for a while, Draymond was not always being guarded in the paint, and that's what people don't remember. As time wore on and the backpack shot became a meme, people began to sack off, but you really weren't doing that in the earlier Warrior days. And so not only did he give you those advantages on defense, but he wasn't somebody in the earlier days that you preferred to leave open on offense. So it was not the equivalent of a small ball lineup you might imagine with like the 90s Bulls and Dennis Rodman, because obviously he wasn't giving you anything on offense. Nothing involving shooting anyways. But okay, back to that point. People were talking about the Celtics way back in the day with Dave Cowens, the Miami Heat where they would run Bosh at center and then maybe Shane Battier at power forward or something to that avail, so you would have shooting all around the floor and very versatile defense. Things of that nature, correct? Yeah, sure, small ball definitely existed in one form or another before the Warriors and Draymond Green, but it was definitely not as popular. And out of those teams that we're talking about, because there were more, there was Heat, the Celtics, and there was more than that, but none of those teams had a 6'6" center that gave them advantages on both ends of the ball. I thought a particularly horrible example I saw was someone saying, oh, well, the 04 Pistons won a championship with a, and the tweet actually said 6'7" center and Ben Wallace. That is not what I found. Ben Wallace is more like 6'9". Okay, maybe splitting hairs there, but I can guarantee you that Pistons small ball and Warriors small ball is absolutely not the same thing. Ben Wallace on the three-point line is not getting a look in any year. Also, when you think Ben Wallace, you think more of rim protection than you think of switching and versatility. Switching the way the Warriors do was definitely not a popular thing 20 years ago. And even when you talk about the Heat small ball, that's barely small ball. It's small ball from an offensive standpoint that yes, everybody on the floor can shoot, everybody is somewhat quick, but Chris Bosh is 6'10". Who are you defensively switching out to a point guard, Chris Bosh or Draymond Green? This is the part where Twitter tries to twist your words and say that you just took Draymond Green over Chris Bosh. Absolutely not. I'm taking Bosh the player. In this situation, I think Green can have a better impact. Green definitely had an impact on this Warriors team and changing the way basketball is played. It's barely been 3 months since the Houston Rockets said to hell with the center. We're literally going to play a natural small forward at that position. They've had a 6'6" Draymond Green, we'll do you one better. A 6'5" PJ Tucker, who is always a legitimate threat from the three-point line. Are we all in agreement here that if we had not seen Draymond Green playing these positions over the last few years, that having PJ Tucker at that position probably would not have been something that they tried? Would that have sounded a lot more ludicrous if we had not had the Warriors dominating the last 5 years? And it still doesn't even have the same impact with PJ Tucker, because with the way the Rockets were playing it, they weren't just leaving him ISO down there with Rudy Gobert. Whereas you can leave Draymond Green on a bigger guy than him and he can hold his own. The Rockets constantly had help. They constantly had guys sitting on their side waiting for something to pop off in the post. So they took the Warriors' proposition from the last few years, which was heavily influenced by Green, and really tried to eliminate the center position altogether. Really tried to put a legitimate perimeter player in that spot. So now with the closing arguments, I leave you with some passages from Marcus Thompson's book called Golden. It's really about the rise of Steph Curry, but there is a, no pun intended, golden section in here about small ball. And specifically, one of the teams we did not talk about earlier was the Run TMC Warriors. This team was coached by Don Nelson, who absolutely loved small ball. He loved good sized forwards that could dribble, that were versatile, hence why that team was so iconic. Because in an era that still featured so many dominant and traditional big men, here you got a team with Tim Hardaway, Chris Mullin, Mitch Richmond, and it's shooting like hell, and it's running like hell, and it's scoring like hell. Their most popular lineup in 1992 featured Mullin, Hardaway, Sarunas Marciulionis, Mario Elie, and Vincent Askew. The tallest player in that lineup that I just mentioned was 6'6". Those were also all guards and forwards that I just named. The difference with this team is that they never made it past the second round and nobody took them seriously. They continued to lose to teams that were bigger than them, and this was seen as not sustainable because it was not defensively efficient at all. Why was it not defensively efficient? They didn't have a guy like Draymond Green. They didn't have a tweener like him that could still pass as credible on offense and still completely anchor their defense. Fast forward many years later, where the small ball adjustment has won the Warriors the championships in the 2015 finals. The lineup was still a bit new at that time, so dive into the beginning of the 2016 season where they're on a win streak and they've used this lineup lineup quite a bit. Only they hadn't used it against a team like the Clippers that was really good and had a lot of size down low. This is the Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan era. With around 6 minutes left in that game, the Warriors are down 10. They sub out Festus Ezeli, run the death lineup. That 10-point lead disappears. Their speed and activity on the defensive end is able to neutralize size advantages that a Blake Griffin has, and on the offensive end, they're able to run pick and rolls. They're able to get open shots and open lanes for multiple players because that Clippers lineup is at a disadvantage with speed defensively. The Warriors win that game, and the Clippers really are never competitive with the Warriors again. When Golden State wins the championship against the Cavaliers, it's against the likes of big guys like Tristan Thompson and Mozgov. They do it against a team like the Clippers, and now you're talking about star big men. This lineup works like it's never really worked before, and a gigantic part of that is Draymond Green. That lineup does not work with a traditional center. It does not work with Bogut or Ezeli. There's not a ton of players that you can plug into that formula and have it work. Thus, Draymond Green slander is fun. I highly doubt that he could ever be the superstar on a championship team. No, he could not be the superstar on a championship team, but that's why basketball, there's roles. It's like people don't understand that. Not everybody's supposed to be out there shooting and blazing the nets and scoring 30. There are roles. So yeah, he's not that good on standalone, but for this Warriors team that changed the game of basketball, he played an integral part. There's no way to deny that just because he wasn't shooting from half court. So it's true that the Rockets are almost aping what the Run TMC Warriors attempted back in the 90s. These Warriors for the last 5 years legitimized that. Run TMC didn't legitimize it. They showed that it could be fiery, it could be a flash in the pan, it could score, but the Warriors we grew up with, they legitimized it. And we could talk all day about the other Warrior players that helped do that, because obviously Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have more of an impact, but to deny Green's impact on this team that changed basketball this decade?
That's stupid! Use your common sense.